This photo is a photo of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt when he was a kid. This is the same man who brought America out of the Great Depression and defeated the Nazis. I love learning about things in our culture that used to be completely ubiquitous, but now have completely disappeared. One of those things is that boys used to wear dresses. Like, all boys when they were young were dressed like girls. This is the famously masculine writer Ernest Hemingway. Tsar Nicholas II, King Louis XIV of France, and countless others across Western culture. This is nowadays what we think of as traditional. It turns out, this is traditional. What exactly is going on here? It was not considered important to differentiate boys and girls at such an early age. The main separation was between children and adults. This is from the Questions and Answers Ladies' Home Journal of 1895. A boy of 2 can wear dresses made from the same pattern as for a little girl. There is little, if any, difference in the style at such an early age. When a boy left his dresses behind and started wearing pants, it was called breeching. The time when he got his first new breeches, nowadays known as pants or trousers. In many Western cultures, like those in Europe and the US, from age 0 to about 8-ish, boys would often wear dresses and gowns just like their sisters. Pants had difficult fastenings back in the day before the zipper was invented. A 3-year-old unbuttoning those pants was impractical, so it was thought that a dress would be easier for them to do things like go to the bathroom. Another reason I read about was cost. Clothes used to be so expensive and make up such a large portion of people's yearly budgets that parents didn't want to spend lots of money dressing their kids over and over again if they grew so quickly. Meanwhile, one big gown would probably last for at least a few years.
Oh, because it can just be long on you and...
Yeah.
Oh.
Part of breeching was as a coming-of-age ritual. Before a time when most kids went to school, the rituals of growing up were a lot less linear. It's not like every child in the 1870s would go to elementary school at the same time or the same age. Many didn't even go to school. So we had rituals to mark the passage of time that were outside of school. Magazines from the 1800s would write about how it was a stressful time for mothers to know exactly when it was time for their little kid to leave dresses and get pants. The usual advice was that a manly boy looked better in short trousers, while a delicate, small for his age fellow should be kept in dresses a little longer. Look, he's so happy in his dress, and so unhappy to be a big kid, grrr. This all made sense to me, but you see, there are so many paintings of young boys in elaborate, ornamented dresses too, with lots of bells and whistles, and many had long hair. What explains that part? There were subtle differences that did separate boys and girls. For example, here's the English royal family in the 1600s. From left to right, there is the Princess Mary, painted with pearls on her neck to indicate her gender, Prince James here, unbreeched, Prince Charles in the middle, old enough to be breeched, and the 2 princesses Elizabeth and Anne, shown again with pearls to show gender. But it wasn't just an upper class thing. Working class people also did it, just less fancy. Here's a painting of a peasant wedding by Peter Bruegel the Elder from the 1500s, showing an unbreeched boy in the foreground. Why did people used to treat boys like girls? The answer is not that boys were treated as girls or dressed like girls, so much as boys and girls were treated the same, as basically ungendered children. Actually, there's a quote here about how it wasn't boys that were dressed like girls, rather adult women dressing like children. Harper's Magazine, 1876. Boys became men through a transition from dependency to mastery, while girls were said to wear forever the baby petticoat with all its royal powers and privileges. It shows how Victorian-era people would infantilize women, literally writing about how women had to forever wear clothing that children wore. Our definitions of what is masculine and feminine have changed massively over the course of history. It wouldn't be considered feminine back then, just childish. For instance, the color blue for boys and pink for girls only first started happening in the United States in the 1920s. Funny enough, this actually was roughly the same time as when adult women's clothing became more practical and androgynous. Shorter skirts, no more corsets, pants for women, as well as style changes like shorter haircuts that were seen at the time as more masculine. Most costume historians agree that this increased freedom in dress reflected the increasing number of social roles available to American women, like entering the white-collar workforce, living in urban areas, playing sports, etc., getting the right to vote. Part of the change away from boys in dresses came due to the popularity of the novel Little Lord Fauntleroy. It inspired mothers to put their kids in velvet suits with large, ruffled lace collars like the titular character of the novel, rather than in dresses, and eventually doing the whole breeching ceremony. Breeching is not common knowledge, and my takeaway from it is that we shouldn't take for granted the gender roles we inhabit or the culture that we consume daily.
I mean, FDR was not that long ago.
FDR was not that long ago. So I'm genuinely curious if some of these self-described cultural conservatives, like Ron DeSantis, who ban discussion of gender in schools, are also banning discussion of this more traditional, more conservative thing that we used to do. I mean, like, I don't know. It's a good question. What is conservatism if it's not returning to what we were? So much of the, quote, traditional gender roles people so confidently claim they understand are relatively recent phenomena. So if you happen to have an attic filled with old photos of your great-grandpappy, maybe go back and see if you can find any pictures of him from like before the 20th century. Maybe you'll find something interesting.